Welcome to a live show, as you can probably tell already. Great to have you all here, and thanks for your patience. Fantastic to see so many people here. So the purpose of this is a new monthly update from the IOHK product team primarily, but we'll also be bringing in people from the wider family. So we'll have guests from Emergo and the CF, and also the wider community. So with no further ado, I'd like to introduce Aparna, who is product director. Okay, there we go. For Cardano. Okay. Hopefully the audio has sorted itself out now. It should sound a little bit better. Working perfectly. Thank you, Joe, for letting us know there. So Aparna, welcome.
Thank you, Tim. Thank you, Tim.
So obviously we tried to do this last month. We ended up with a recorded show in the end. We're going to attempt to do this live going forwards. Let's see how it goes. But perhaps just by means of introduction for anybody who didn't get the last video, perhaps just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure. Hello, community. I'm the IOHK's product director. And, sorry we couldn't do this live last month, but we're here now. And before I get going, I just wanted to first and foremost, on behalf of all of us here, like to extend our thoughts to our community and also to your communities during this unprecedented time with the COVID-19 situation. We all wish you safety and sanity really during these trying times. So pivoting to product. So our current focus for the product team is obviously Cardano, delivering the solution which to me is more than a solution. It's really a purpose-driven platform, and it has real-world applications. And just a little bit about me, my experience and my passion has always been working with innovation and working on innovation-based solutions that, and here's the key, it has real market use cases and ultimately built to make a difference in the world. And that's really why I'm here, Tim. Now, this company, IO, has been built on some great research, right? Great peer-reviewed research. We've heard this, and that's why we're all here. And then the use of formal methodology and the process around that to spec out the designs. And that is truly how you get high assurance code. So why product management? Product management and product in general, because it's not just about product managers, it really is a full cast of characters that support this. Where they inject themselves is really about asking about the fundamentals. It's the whys. It's the why are we putting in a certain feature over something else. It is for whom are we designing all these features. It's what are we actually going to be designing? What does the experience look like? And of course, the how. So our purpose is not to design it. Our purpose is really to make the best, help the experts make the best decisions on how to design something, and really putting some real world context to what I feel is beautiful research that we have here. And if you talk to anybody in our team, they'll tell you we have a great base to start with. We've got a great community, we've got great research, and it's really about prioritizing and building a continuous improvement feedback loop into our processes here. And at the end of the day, what does this mean? Why would a stakeholder such as you or someone in the community care? And in my opinion, it's not really about building just anything, right? We're building a technology that could be exponentially innovative to so many real world use cases, right? And to make this sticky and adopt and be there long after we're here, it's really needs to have a level of high assurance, which is quality, but also it has to have a level of customer and user-based input into it. So we're prioritizing and building the right things. So it's about listening, and that's my job right now is really how we're going to be listening and to what's being asked of us, and also listening to the tests that you guys are going to perform on our behalf on our products. And we are really excited to be talking about a lot of these concepts today and what we're doing. And the ITN, for example, is a great showcase of this sort of community-based feedback loop into our products, our next generation of products. And Tim, you were heavily involved in that, and you just recently ran a stake pool operator. If you want to say a couple words about it.
Yeah, that's right. I mean, I think obviously the focus for today is going to be around the Byron Reboot, which is kicking off this week and is obviously occupying a lot of our time. A lot of the dev team can't actually join us on this call because they're still in the final stages of delivery.
Right.
But I think really the ITN was the best example yet we've seen of that collaboration between the community and the product team, and in fact the whole of the three companies involved behind Cardano. So I think that's probably where we'd like to start today, with a bit of an update. So we've asked Dynal to join us, who I'm going to now invite to give us a little bit of an update on where we are with the ITN. Dynal, hello.
Hi Tim, can you hear me okay?
We can hear you fine. Hopefully everybody else can. Now, Dynal is based in South Africa, and I understand a few cables got cut in the last week, so we've had some challenges. But hopefully we can hear you loud and clear. So Dynal, you know, we launched the testnet back in December. It was a pretty crazy month. I know members of the stake pool operator community had as much sleep as we did during December. We've come quite a long way, but perhaps you want to tell us a little bit about that journey and where we are now.
Yeah, I mean, what I will say is, you know, the ITN has really exceeded our expectations. If I was honest, and I think probably the whole team would say that as well, that it is, yeah, it's basically the level of participation and engagement that we've had has been way beyond what we expected. We've had over 1,000 stake pools on chain, for example, 800 of those are active. We've seen over 17,000 people delegate to stake pools. We've seen 38% of the total ADA supply delegated within the incentivized testnet. And also the community contributions. I mean, we've seen over 100 GitHub accounts contribute to the project. 250 unique clones of the node. We've seen the community step up and build tools that were missing. So really a big thank you to everyone that's contributed to making this a huge success.
So I think obviously the feedback's been continuous throughout the whole process, but as Aparna said at the beginning, we actually had an event in London which we got in just before the coronavirus really closed everything down. I mean, that was a particularly useful session, a relatively small group for reasons of geography, but what were some of the key things that we heard from our stake pool community from that?
Yeah, we had a lot of great input from the stake pool operators. I'd say sort of the things that would be top of my mind would be firstly, they wanted us to make sure that we consolidate information in one place. Our documentation is very fragmented, so the team's going to work on that. They asked us to sort of look at also the key parameters to ensure the economic model makes sense for stake pool operators, especially in this economic climate. They also asked us to think about how we could enable communication between stake pool operators and delegators, and even for simple things like alerts, for example. Some of the things that they were concerned about also was avoiding a race to the bottom, especially as, for example, exchanges come online, and also initiatives that we could think about to help smaller stake pools, especially ones that are struggling to create blocks, but with a great setup. Beyond that, there's also marketing elements. How can we support stake pool operators to build a brand? How can we help them to migrate that onto mainnet? What can we do to enhance the metadata schema so that they can better promote themselves and also give the community choice? So introducing this concept of aggregators and curators. On a protocol level, there's a lot we learned about improvements that need to be made to the incentive scheme to discourage bad behavior, for example, the cloning, and in general as well, there's a request for help, for example, best practice from DevOps in terms of how to run a stake pool and the parameter settings around that. Also, the community would appreciate technical training sessions, for example, having a training week or providing access to our developers. So I'd say probably those were the key elements, and the team is actively looking into them. We're actually actioning some of them And over the course of the year, we'll definitely work on them. And I think Aparna will come back with updates on where we are with those.
Tim,
How many
we're not.
guys
Sorry, Tim, I've lost your audio.
Okay.
No, you're good now.
Good now?
Yes.
Yes.
Yeah. So we've had, support from all over the world. As I say, we had our event in Europe with a few of the guys from Europe, and I've noticed a few names. So Rick is there, for example, and his show, The Cardano Effect, have obviously been really valuable contributors. So heads up to you, Rick, and Philippe particularly, but also everybody over there. We would have loved to have got far more people from far wider to our particular event. But what we have done is we've captured some of the main feedback from that. Original document, about 16 pages of notes, I think, which poor old Mackie had to write up, but has done a fantastic job as ever. So we've shared that now with the core ambassador community, but we intend to share that more widely so that all the stake pool operator community can have access to some of the things we've been told and have a chance to offer their own feedback. The I-10 has been this pathfinder really on the journey to Shelley on mainnet. And the learnings from both a technical perspective, a game theory perspective, a marketing perspective have been massively valuable. Dynal, perhaps you just share a little bit more about how, operationally we're trying to build some of that stuff in as we head towards mainnet, Shelley.
Yes, sure. So what we've done as a team is we've basically gone to each of the functions. So, DevOps, the product team, project management teams, and we've done an internal lessons learned, but we've also gone to all the various stakeholders, so our partners, and looked at how they've interacted with the various tools that we've given them. We've talked to all the delegators, so we've sent out surveys over a course of I think a month. We've held these workshops, so we've consolidated all of these learnings into a single document. I think we've got over 300 actions from across all these different work streams. So we're now working with Aparna and team to prioritize the key ones and see which of those we can actually we'll make it into mainnet. But the idea is that we'll continuously improve the product. So we'll pick those up over the course of the year.
Tim, we lost you again.
Here we go. Hopefully that's better. Yeah, just looking at the poll here, we've got 30% of the votes, people running a stake pool here, 66 votes delegating ADA. So really good to see this level of participation in the testnet. And obviously we hope going forwards to invite everybody else to be staking on the mainnet. So thank you, Dynal, for joining us. We'll see you again soon. So I'm going to invite Aparna back in now. Thanks, Dynal. Cheers.
Thank you, Dynal.
Okay, so Aparna, ITN, where we are now. We're heading to the Byron reboot, literally as we speak.
Right.
Obviously, a few bits and pieces have been deployed already. Some of the relays have been live already on the network for some time. But perhaps just to set things off in terms of setting some context, perhaps you just want to tell us a little bit about why the Byron reboot matters. I mean, we're heading to Shelley. Why are we talking about Byron again?
That's a great question. So for me, the theme is foundation. Byron's theme has always been about foundation. So bear with me, people, but I'm more of a visual learner. So if you think about concentric circles with a common center, we start at the core, and the core is really about fundamentals. It's the innermost circle. It's foundational. It's performance. It's reliability. It's sync times. It's things of that nature. Around that would be a circling layer of integrations and interactions, right? These are unseen layers, but they would make it easy for exchanges and other users to be able to integrate, and also our own components that make up the blockchain to be able to integrate with each other. And then finally, you have this really nice outer shell, but that's the user experience and that's the workflows. And that's all about your experience with the product or with the solution. And if I take that sort of concentric view, it's about building that product that will last longer than we put out. So it continues on after we're gone, because the user experience, the outer layer, is really what's going to make you consider why you would use Cardano as a blockchain platform. Then it would go into the integrations. Why would this be the easiest way for you to interact with us and how you could try us out? And then you finally go to the core. So the performance and the reliability make it stick. That's what makes the product really sticky, because it's a high quality product at this point. right? So with Byron's Reboot, it's got the design and the core has been improved. So it's modular. You've separated, and this is kind of going under the hood a little bit, but it's separating the ledger and the consensus, the network components. And what this means to you as a community member, it's really about the performance and the reliability of the code. And whenever we do make updates to any of it based on the user feedback loops, then it doesn't really take us that long to be able to deliver it to you. And also it has less chances or dependencies of breaking the other piece, another portion of it. The Reboot also allows us to do the whole evidence-based methodology or the engineering approach, right, to what we're doing. It's a key core proposition for us. We believe it. We're going with it, and it's multiple teams here. So we have, for Byron, for example, we've got multiple teams. You're going to hear from our product people on this call, but multiple teams coming together to work on their piece of the pie when it comes to, or component really, and then putting it all together and testing all of this before they hand it over to you to test. I do want to take a minute to talk about the testing, Tim, because there are different levels of testing that make formal methodology such a key value proposition for us. So for instance, at the core, at the performance level, our developers use something called Quick Check, which is really a software library, right? It supports what we call property-based testing. Some of you may already be familiar with it, but this is a chance for them to specify these high-level mathematical properties about the code, and then they run them through these randomized test cases to test those properties out. And what this really does is it brings out bugs and issues that you wouldn't be able to catch in regular QA, and what we call an exotic bug, for example, or something that we would have never found. And we have a bunch of these that our teams have found through this process getting here. And I mean, there was actually one that I wrote down because I thought that was pretty interesting. It was one that the consensus team was working on, where they were trying to improve the sync performance. And they were making the block addition portion of it asynchronous rather than synchronous to be able to increase the sync time or get better sync times. What ended up happening is through this Quick Check, they were testing it out, and they found that the block fetch code, the logic to it didn't really align with the whole asynchronous nature of block addition. And what that did was it did the opposite effect. It was detrimental for syncing times. Now, something like that, you can't really catch during regular QA. So by using this property-based methodology with informal methods to be able to check this at these component levels, that gives us a level of testing. Then we've got the second layer of testing, which is really integration testing and QA. And then we've got the third layer, which really is all of us, all of you, the community. It's about bringing testing out and putting out releases out there so we get the input back from you on what's going good, what's going bad, and we bring that testing back in. And we love to have our community be involved in this because ultimately this is a community product. And this is about fast, agile methodology, right? So just in my career, I've been involved in both waterfall and agile, and waterfall does work well for certain instances, but to really make a true innovative software product be agile, we really need this community methodology, and we're putting this to Byron, and hence the Reboot, and it's going to give us the great platform and foundation on which Shelley, which is soon to come in iterations to build upon. And Tim, I'd love to welcome our product manager for the node, Kevin, onto the show to let us a little bit deeper into. Hi, Kevin.
Hi, Aparna. So it's been great to see so many exciting questions coming up on the list. I'm not sure we're going to have enough time to answer all of these. But first thing to say is it's been a really exciting few months. We've all been working really, really hard behind the scenes, and it's fantastic to get to the stage where we're releasing Byron Reboot and where Shelley is just on the horizon and Gogan and so on just behind that. It's also been amazing to interact with people on the IT and on the incentivized testnet, to meet with the stake pool operators and see people actually using the code. I'm particularly excited to get Daedalus out using the node and having ordinary people using things that we've built. It's an amazing experience. So thanks, guys, for that. So Aparna, you wanted to go through a few things, questions maybe?
Let's take a look at the feature benefits for the Byron Reboot. Why is this important to our community?
Well, I think you've covered quite a few of them already. you've done such a good job, Aparna, that I'm not sure there's a huge amount for me to add. So of course, the performance and reliability improvements, this is what we've been aiming at. But this is not just to bring benefit to Byron. This is going to underpin all of the future development that we're doing. So we've completely rewritten the Byron code base. This is literally from the ground up rewrite. The consensus code, the ledger code, the networking code, these are all new for the Byron reboot. And the advantage of that is because we're following a modular approach, we can easily slot in the future developments that we need to. So the delegation for Shelley, smart contracts for Goguen, and lots of other exciting things that are going to happen coming forward in the very near future. So another great thing that we've done, of course, is to deploy this formal but agile development methodology. And this is great because we've been able to bring things very quickly together. I know it appears to have taken 18 months, but actually things have been moving very, very fast behind the scenes. So we have a new software development methodology where we have proved formally key aspects of the ledger rules, for example. We know that the ADA is preserved by the ledger rules. Nobody's going to lose any ADA, assuming our processes are correct. We have been able to translate that into tests, quick check tests. So we've been able to check the code and verify the code does exactly what we're saying. But at the same time, we've been able to make very quick and rapid adjustments, including incorporating some feedback from the Stake Pool Operators Workshop. There were some issues that people raised that are very important. We've been listening to you. We've been listening to what's happening on the ITN, and we've been able to incorporate those. As Dynal said, I've got 300 actions to take forward for the Shelley testnet. So I need to get cracking on those. But we will bring it in as much as we possibly can, as quickly as we possibly can.
Absolutely, Kevin. You know, we've learned a lot going through this process and in such a short amount of time, and we're putting out some great stuff. But really, a lot of the community is also here to talk about Shelley. And let's kind of go into the testnet phase of Shelley and how we're going to be applying what we've learned with Byron and bringing in the community into Shelley's testnet.
Yeah, so the great thing about the Shelley code is that about 80% of it is the same as the Byron code, Aparna. So all the things that we've been working on recently, all the improvements will be carried forward to Shelley as well. So the way we will be rolling this out, the first thing to do, of course, is to have an internal testnet. So we're going to be testing the code internally, the new Shelley node code. Then we're going to open up to a few pool operators, exchanges, and other key partners, and go through a phased process of testing. So we really want to test this out to systematically test all of the features, all the delegation and other features that are going to be important, and to make sure that the documentation that we have is absolutely first rate. We know that a lot of you appreciated the help and documentation that you had for the incentivized testnet. We're hoping to provide documentation that's at least as good as that, and hopefully better. So we're working really, really hard to do that. Having gone through our first phase of opening up the testnet, what we'll then do is to open it up to the world. So this will be when we open the gates and we say, please come and try it out. We expect that to be a relatively short phase, because by that stage, everything should be thoroughly tested. We've proved things, we've applied our formal methodology, we've been doing lots and lots of testing. We will have tried everything out on a large number of nodes, probably about 10,000 nodes, and we'll have a lot of confidence that things will work. And really what we're going to be doing in the second testnet phase will be tuning, setting parameters, and onboarding the pool operators, because that's going to be incredibly important to engage with everyone. And I noticed that somebody said, are we going to make it easy for the existing ITN pool operators to establish themselves on the Shelley mainnet? And the answer is yes. We've been thinking about how we do that. We've been investigating various ways to, for example, carry over ticker names and other information. So we will do our best to make it easy to get up and running.
Okay, so Kevin, there was quite a few things we learned from the ITN, and you guys heard what Dynal had talked about earlier, and a lot of it had to do with communication about what we're coming up with, how we're rolling this out, what are the phases. A lot of you really want to know what we're working on and when is it going to come out. It's as simple as that, and we would love to give you straightforward answers. So in order to do that, we're really testing this agile process of very quick iterations and putting these out into constant streams of sprints. And we will be communicating with you more regularly as we're going forward. So this live show, this product management update, we're going to do this once a month. But there's also going to be other areas that Tim can talk about of what we're constantly going to give you guys in terms of videos and updates weekly, bi-weekly, fortnightly, just to keep you in the loop of what's going on. Because at this point, we really do need this feedback with a lot of the product. Tim, do you want to speak a little bit to that before we go on to?
Yeah, I mean, we've had a couple of questions come through the community about marketing and communications. And obviously, to Aparna's earlier point, really the focus up until this point has been about building foundations, about building a core platform that we can really start implementing and building the functionality that's going to make Cardano what we've always promised it's going to be. The Byron reboot is the first stage of that process. And then obviously Shelley on mainnet, bringing with it delegation, staking, and decentralization. Now, when it comes to marketing, it's ultimately about adoption, but it's also first and foremost about building awareness and building understanding. The ITN was a really good first start for us to understand who some of those very important users were, i.e. the people delegating their stake and also the stake pool operator community. So we'll take those learnings through. And so as we communicate, getting closer to Shelley and the real deal on the mainnet, there's a huge amount of learnings we'll get there. And quite rightly, people have mentioned we're working with a few different people. McCann, one of them. We're doing a lot of internal work, working very closely with the CF, obviously, on building our go-to-market plans there. As we start to head into the Goguen era, that will open up a new set of audiences, so particularly dApp developers. And with each era, effectively, we'll have new constituency that we need to reach and go through this process of building awareness, understand what it is we're building and why it should matter to them. So I'm obviously working very closely with you and your team, Aparna, on defining those kind of core product benefits based on the implementation that's happening on the platform and the software side, as it were. So it's still a moving feast. There's no point in promoting a product until it's ready, but equally we need to make absolutely sure we are shaping a product there is a clear demand for. We've got some good partnerships already. You've seen a few of the things we've done already with some of the proof of concepts and some of the memorandums of understanding. The commercial team is continuing to build those sort of relationships. So really, it's an ongoing process, building the brand, building understanding, but first and foremost, having real clear propositions that we can get people to build on that will really drive ADA adoption going forwards. So we'll have a little slot pretty much every time on some aspect of that marketing and comm story. But as Aparna says, our primary intention is just to make you guys, keep you informed of what's happening with a more regular cadence of information, which itself mirrors the more regular cadence of releases, sprints, and so forth. So Kevin, just merely to close this conversation off, I suppose, more than anything else, we sort of talked about the Haskell testnet. Obviously, again, the learnings from the ITN are going to be a significant part of that. We will be reaching out to some of the stake pool operators in the community over the course of the next few weeks, and we'll be looking for some early people to help us with our documentation. Is that correct?
That's right. So we're reaching out to people. We'll be publishing documentation and other information. You'll be able to download and install the code, and the plan is to make available a standard AWS instance, so you'll be able to pick that up and use it yourself. So there'll be plenty of opportunity, plenty of scope to tune things. And I can see people saying, how long do we expect the testnet to last realistically? Appears to be the top question. Obviously, we can't answer that because we're going to make it as good as we possibly can. But coming soon is the short answer.
Okay. Well, Kevin, thank you very much for the update. We'll hopefully see you next month, and we'll have further news on the rollout of the Haskell Shelley testnet. So thank you, Kevin.
Thanks, Kevin.
Okay, so we've talked about community, we've talked about users, and we've talked about the Byron reboot. What happens when you put them all together, and what are people going to experience? What are people actually going to see as a result of the reboot, and also some of the other work that's been going on behind the scenes? So I'm now inviting Darko. Darko, hi.
Hi, Tim.
So Darko is product manager for Daedalus. We have some news about Daedalus we're going to share. So perhaps, Darko, just before we kind of start that, just be good for anybody who hasn't come across you before. I'm sure they've all watched your amazing videos that you make. But perhaps you just want to tell us a little bit about yourself, your role, and your particular area of interest and expertise.
Yeah, sure. So let me start with a bit of background. When I joined IOHK almost 4 years ago, I was working mostly as a JavaScript developer. And I actually wrote the first lines of code for Daedalus with one more colleague who was working with me. And I also came to IOHK with technical background. Before IOHK, I was coding and architecting big financial systems and government systems with enterprise Java. So currently, I'm mostly a technical product manager. This will probably change as Daedalus continues to grow, and I will probably continue in the direction of strategic product manager. And my area of expertise is user experience and user interface design and software architecture. And there is one thing I'm especially excited about, and that's executable specification. And just briefly, it serves two purposes in Daedalus. It's a human-readable way of capturing software requirements. So we use it to specify features. And secondly, it also works as automated tests. So it clicks through the UI and executes all of our UI tests, which is very important.
Okay. So, Darko, we're talking about the Byron reboot. Perhaps you can give us a little bit of an insight as to how you've been involved in this, which is fundamentally a platform initiative, isn't
it? So sorry, I lost connection for a second.
What's your involvement been with the Byron reboot? We've talked about the platform. So.
Okay, so I always start with working on software requirements. So I was working on specification for our software requirements for Byron. And then I work with our UX and UI teams to actually build the designs and lay the foundation for the development. And for example, in this Byron reboot release, there is a very important feature, which is wallet migration. And I wanted to make sure that this feature requires zero manual tests from user point of view. So it's completely automatic, no manual actions are needed. And I'm also working on our roadmap, and I work on our split planning and sprint execution with our excellent team lead, Nicola Glumets. He's doing amazing work. We also have dedicated professional experience, multidisciplinary team. So thanks, Daedalus team, you are amazing. Then I participate in the release process. I write release notes. I'm making videos, as you said. And both videos and the release notes are very important since they show the progress we are making. And they also educate users how to use our features.
Okay. So I think there's also, alongside the reboot, there's actually a new program that we want to tell people about tonight, isn't there? I mean, we've talked about the importance of community. We've talked about the user feedback loop. Perhaps you want to tell us what we're doing around that.
Yeah, sure. So everything kind of started with the Incentivized testnet. It's been amazing to see how Cardano community help us build the stake pools for Shelley, and obviously also Daedalus Forest for the INTN. So this was the core idea behind the Daedalus Flight program we are doing right now. So this is a pre-release version of Daedalus. The users can use with real ADA on the mainnet. So this is the important part. So people can join the program by downloading the Flight wallet, and they can use it alongside their production version of Daedalus. So they can compare them, and the idea is for them to help us find issues so we can fix issues. And we've seen that people want to help, and these people will also gain access to new features before everyone else. So it's kind of similar to beta testing, like Canary Google releases for its Chrome browser, and this will be like a very valuable source of test data. We'll be able to improve the quality of our new software and move to production more quickly. So this
is a parallel wallet program. Effectively, Daedalus Flight allows users to try out some advanced functionality, still with the same kind of standards of safety and security of a mainnet wallet, but all the feedback comes back to the dev team.
Absolutely. So when you download and install Daedalus Flight, it's a completely separate installation, so it's completely safe. Safe in terms that it doesn't touch your production version of Daedalus. It just copies over and migrates your wallets, and that's it. So if you help us find issues and fix issues, and if you are stuck with an issue, you can just go back to your production version of Daedalus and continue using it.
Yep. Okay. Well, look, no further ado. Can you give us a demo?
Yeah, sure. Let me share my screen. So here on the left side, I have production version of Daedalus, and here on the right side, I have Daedalus Flight. And this is actually blocking my screen. Okay. So the first thing you will see when you install Daedalus Flight is it has a new theme. So this theme is the only theme available in this version of Daedalus, and that's because we wanted to differentiate it from the production version of Daedalus. And it also has this icon here, which opens the screen, which explains what the Flight product is and how it should be used and who should be using it. So the only thing I did so far, I just installed the Flight version of Daedalus, and I obviously let it sync, and it detected all of my wallets from the production version of Daedalus, and it migrated them over or imported them here. So this will happen for all users who are actually using Daedalus and who have wallets in their Daedalus production version of Daedalus. Okay, so next, wallet import created two wallets here, and one of these wallets, this one, doesn't have a spending password. Spending passwords were not mandatory in the previous version of Daedalus, but now they are mandatory. So the first time I click on this wallet, I will actually need to set a spending password, which is a good idea generally. So this wallet is completely unusable until I set a spending password. And now my wallet has all the features that we are used to having in the production version of Daedalus with some additions. For example, if I go to the same wallet and I go to transactions, it only has a couple. Here we on the Daedalus Lite version, we have transaction filtering. So it's a neat feature which lets you filter transactions by incoming and outgoing, by the time and amount of ADA. And the very neat feature is this one, all transactions, which actually pre-populates data with minimum and maximum amounts for all of these values. So my minimum transaction in this wallet is 0.66 ADA, and my maximum transaction is 1 ADA. So I can kind of know what can I filter from. Then we have completely redesigned wallet restoration. It now has multiple steps. And it also we're also supporting Yoroi wallets. So you can restore your Yoroi wallet here in Daedalus, and it will be completely functional, and it will have the same state because the state lives on the blockchain, and you can continue using both Yoroi and Daedalus and compare user experiences. So this restoration wizard is now multi-step wizard. I'm not sure if we have time for me to enter one set of recovery phases. Here we go. Oh, I made a mistake. Never mind. The thing I wanted to show you is that this step of entering wallet recovery phrases is a discrete step, because we wanted to make sure that user understand that the only thing that you need to restore a wallet is just the wallet recovery phrase. So in the next step, you are setting the wallet name and spending password. Then there is one more thing. I will close this window. There is one more important thing to show you, that there are obviously a lot of small improvements which we were developing during the course of incentivized testnet. But the one more important feature here is changes to the send form. So if I want to receive ADA in this wallet, and I go to the other one, and I enter. So we have added this warning to confirm transaction dialog, because we want to make sure that anyone who is using Daedalus flight is using mainnet, and these are real mainnet ADA transactions, and they are irreversible. So in order to make a transaction, I would need to type my spending password, and I also need to confirm this by using this checkbox. So that's kind of the most important things. We have parity with what we had before, but we also have some nice additions. And everything is already in this first release working much better than the old wallet, performance-wise and stability-wise. We are still doing performance testing, and so it's too early to share the actual data. But for example, I have synced this wallet in 90 minutes from the beginning, and with the mainnet it took me 4 hours. And then the wallet restoration here took 15 minutes, and here it's still running. It takes about 2.5 to 3 hours. So great improvements in performance so far.
Yeah, so we're still doing some benchmarking behind the scenes, I believe, but hopefully when people can download this and try it for themselves, they'll see some initial improvements, and then obviously those will only improve over time as we run the program.
Yeah.
So Darko, thank you very much. Thank you, particularly since I know you've been working 20 hours a day for the best part of the last couple of weeks getting everything ready. So thank you and well done for that. We'll see you again very, very soon. Good luck with the launch of Daedalus Flight.
Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, so I think one, when talking about wallets, one important point to note, and this is another key learning from the ITN, is around safety and security. Particularly with new programs like Flight, we know there's scammers out there. We know there's always people trying to exploit opportunities, and the community team and the ambassadors are kind of its bashamol to a certain extent at certain times. So, as usual, just make sure you follow sound guidelines, follow security and safety principles, which you'll find on the Cardano forum, and we'll get Mackie to post those up here in the chat as well, just to remind everybody. It's a really important thing. So let's move on. So we've talked about user-facing wallets, the key interface to the ADA holder and the ADA user. Let's maybe talk a little bit now about another very important interface, and I'm now going to invite Nick Nayfack into the chat. So Nick is the product manager for Adrestia. So who should be joining us fairly shortly? Here comes Nick.
Tim, while we're waiting,
Yeah.
Fun fact, how did we come up with Flight?
Hi.
So Flight will be downloadable from the Daedalus website. We'll be pushing up a tab there within the next day or so, where people can download it as usual alongside the full production version of Daedalus as well. So thank you for that. Nick, hi, welcome.
Hi, Tim. How you doing?
Yeah, good. Great you could join us. So, Nick, the word's been bandied around a little bit over the last few weeks, but really Adrestia is a fairly new word to people. Perhaps you just want to tell us just a little bit about what Adrestia is.
Yeah, Adrestia is simply a collection of APIs and libraries to make integrating with the Cardano core node easier and more sustainable from a maintenance perspective. So as it stands today, there are often a great number of repos in GitHub. It's not always straightforward for exchanges or third-party wallets or other developers to find and integrate with the core node. We often have amazing protocols that sometimes can be difficult to understand for people that are new to them. And Adrestia creates a nice set of APIs and libraries to create, sign, submit transactions, and also have things like Cardano Wallet at your disposal to manage UTXOs and do things on your behalf if you don't have the expertise to do that. So again, it's primarily an easier and better way to integrate with the core node and to take advantage of our node to client protocol.
So what will Adrestia deliver to exchanges that they aren't getting at the moment?
So a lot of exchanges now have become more sophisticated in their integrations. And a few years ago, you saw people having trouble doing simple things like address management or dealing with UTXOs. And now it's become quite clear that a lot of the exchanges and third-party wallets want to have a deeper reach into the Cardano node and also not have things break quite as frequently as a result of rapid change and release on our side. So as a consequence, Adrestia's core sort of premise is to manage a lot of those changes on behalf of that user and developer base so that people can integrate with a stable set of libraries so that prior to releases coming out, they don't break with every hard fork. And more optimistically, that we provide an easier way and faster way for people to integrate.
And ultimately, this is about adoption.
Correct. So the bottom line for this is that we are headed towards building a coherent set of SDKs that remain stable across a regular release schedule so that, again, exchanges, third-party wallets, stake pool operators, and other developers who build against the core node don't have to keep pace with a lot of the node to client protocol changes, and we can manage that essentially on their behalf.
So we're already working with exchanges on this. We had a question from Tony, for example, asking about Gemini, for example, one example. But I assume we've now started working with a number of exchanges, even if we can't talk about specifics.
Again, I can't really mention specific exchanges for various reasons, but we are working with all the top exchanges in the crypto space right now and essentially creating a more reliable and high-performing method of not only just integrating, but also maintaining that code base for the exchanges, because it's quite a challenge for them on their side as well to keep pace with a lot of the changes now, given our expanded product team and given our expanded focus to release more frequently.
Okay, and if we've got anybody from exchanges on the call today, or indeed if there's anybody who wants to have a look at the code, I assume this code is all available through open repos?
It is, and one thing I'd like to point out is that Adrestia is a collection of APIs and libraries, and to be more specific, those APIs consist of Cardano Wallet, which is formerly known as the Cardano backend, that has been incorporated into a larger set of APIs as well, including the former Explorer. And we're offering Cardano.rest, you'll see in this upcoming release, and also Cardano.graphql. And those are all just ways to do very similar things to explore the blockchain more efficiently and quickly, and to have more flexible queries for developers. And beyond that, in terms of our library specifically, we're going to be supporting Batch32. We have a library to create, sign, several libraries to create, sign, submit, and serialize transactions, and do things like address management, make it easy for you to submit a transaction. So look for those libraries to be coming live as we approach Shelley.
Fantastic. Thanks very much, Nick. So relatively early days, but we'll get you back on a later stage to give us the latest updates. So thank you, Nick.
Yep, cheers.
Okay, so we've been focused on the immediate, so the Byron reboot. We've been looking at the slightly longer term, Adrestia. Let's maybe go a couple of steps further still. One of the other pieces of news from the IOHK camp in the last couple of weeks has been around Hydra, the publication of a paper. That's obviously been quite a significant source of interest for a lot of the community. Now, I thought we would bring Rob Cohen on, who I shall call into the... So here comes Rob, and Rob can introduce himself as soon as he arrives. Tell us a little bit about Hydra and what it means. Hey, Rob.
Hey Tim, how's it going?
Yeah. So Rob, tell us a little bit of an introduction to you fit into Hydra.
Yeah, sure. So a little background on me. I've been working at IOHK for 2 years now. I started as a Haskell dev, and then I moved into product management. Since then, I've been focused on performance and scaling solutions for Cardano. That includes Hydra. Previously, I worked as an information security engineer, and I have a very in-depth InfoSec background. So yeah, that's a little bit about me and how I'm involved with Hydra.
Cool. Okay, so Hydra is obviously still the paper stage now. It's a piece of academic research, which obviously it has a roadmap of its own. Ultimately, will become part of the Ouroboros protocol. But just before we talk a little bit about that, perhaps you just want to give a little bit of a overview of Ouroboros to anybody who maybe isn't familiar with the different ages of it and how it fits in.
Yeah, sure. So it's important to understand that Ouroboros is really a family or an evolution of protocols. The Ouroboros paper was the first iteration of the Ouroboros family, and it was published in 2017. That's Ouroboros Classic. That's how we refer to it now. That introduced the mathematical framework for the protocol as an energy efficient alternative to proof of work. It also introduced the ability to use secure MPC to generate unbiased randomness in the selection of slot leaders. That was the initial iteration. And since then, there's been a number of additional protocols that we've developed that iterate and improve on it. There's Ouroboros BFT, which is the bridge between Ouroboros Classic and Ouroboros Praus. This is the transition from the old Cardano SL code base to the new Cardano node, which is going to occur during the Byron reboot. This Ouroboros Praus, right, which is that's going to be introduced during the Shelley era. This is what enables the decentralization. It's built upon Ouroboros Classic, and it provides stronger security assumptions. It assumes semi-synchronous settings, for example. There's also Ouroboros Genesis. This is an iteration on Praus, where it has a novel chain selection rule, which enables bootstrapping from Genesis, providing the same security guarantees as Bitcoin. You no longer need checkpoints in order to synchronize. There's also Genesis proved the security of Ouroboros under universal composability. So it's gone through, there's been a huge amount of effort and work to prove that that Ouroboros is highly secure. So moving from there, now we're going to Ouroboros Hydra. The paper that was published last week, well, that was about the Hydra protocol, but Ouroboros Hydra is the second layer protocol, which enables vastly increased scalability with Cardano. Hydra is an off-chain scalability architecture for distributed ledgers. So you can actually use it on other distributed ledger technologies. Now it enables high transaction throughput, low latency, and minimal storage per node. So again, it's important to understand that Ouroboros Hydra, that is our second layer solution for Cardano. The scalability architecture can be divided into four components, really. There's the head protocol, and this is the paper that you saw that was published just a few weeks ago. This is what enables a high set of, a set of high performance and high availability participants, such as stake pools, to very quickly process large numbers of transactions with minimal storage requirements by way of isomorphic multi-party state channels. That's a mouthful. So this is the concept that generalizes two-party payment channels as implemented in the context of the Lightning Network, except instead of with two participants in a payment channel, you could have multiple participants. So after this head protocol, we're going to be working on the tail protocol, right? And that'll be available in a research paper that's forthcoming. This is what's going to enable high performance participants to provide scalability for large numbers of end users who might use the system from low power devices such as mobile phones and who might be offline for extended periods of time. And then we're also going to need the cross-head and tail communication protocol, right? So these three core protocols are going to be supported by additional protocols which can handle routing, configuration management, and channel virtualization. So those sets of protocols are going to consist of all of what Hydra has to offer, what Ouroboros Hydra is going to consist of. What we saw published earlier was just the head protocol.
Really starts to become an issue when we have mass adoption, or is it a problem now?
Yeah, so scalability, right? You know, my vision on scalability is that this is really what we're waiting for to explode a whole set of killer applications. You know, obviously the one that many people are focused on is micropayments. You know, I foresee a future where Ouroboros Hydra is responsible for 99% of all the transactions that would occur in the Cardano ecosystem. It's hugely important to get to a place where we can get transactions and smart contracts to be able to execute with virtually no cost or no cost if conducted within a Hydra head. This is going to open up massive applications. So I'm very excited to be involved with this.
And TPS is also very often a metric that people use broadly. I mean, particularly in the context of Hydra, you know, thousands, millions, infinite, whichever way you want to look at it. Again, how relevant is TPS at the moment and going forwards?
Right. Well, you know, it's funny. Everybody's always so focused on TPS, and it's a reasonable thing to be concerned about. But you know, it's really important to keep in mind, you know, what exactly TPS means. If you compare, you want to compare apples to apples, is what I'm getting at, right? If you compare the internet to snail mail, you know, that's a difficult comparison to make realistically because they're very different systems. If you want to have a fair comparison, you know, you really have to take the whole system into consideration. So, you know, Visa, you know, there's various claims on how many transactions they can do, 24,000, somewhere in that general ballpark, but that's a completely different architecture. For Hydra, you know, what we saw in the simulations is that we can easily accomplish 1,000 transactions per second per head. Now, this is a very parallelizable protocol. So by parallelizing these heads, you can easily scale to the size of the amount of bandwidth that you actually share with the other participants. So, you know, we could throw out crazy claims that, you know, billions or very high claims of transactions per second, but it really comes down to the architecture of the underlying network on which you're doing these transactions. So, you know, what I'm happy to report is that it's very parallelizable, and it comes very close to the theoretical maximum that's feasible via communications. So, you know, unless the laws of physics are broken, I find it unlikely that somebody will be able to invent something that's much more capable than what we have.
Okay, Rob, thank you very much. We're well overrunning, but really thank you very much for your insights there, and we'll look forward to seeing you again soon. Thank you.
Sure, thank you.
Okay. So Aparna, I'm very aware I'm keeping all your team away from the reboot. We've got a lot of questions here. We've got 51 questions. I don't think we can really hope to answer too many of those. I mean, maybe just before we close, it would be worth just mentioning a couple of these here. I think there's a couple of here we might want to talk to particularly. I mean, ultimately, we're here today, and the reason we're all doing this is to create a world-class, world-beating product. And there's a good question here, for example, from Pradeepo. What are some of the key features of Cardano, apart from the scientific approach and formal methods, that differentiates it from the competition? That might be a good one that we want to have a go at answering.
So we've actually answered quite a few of those in the questions and answers panel. So if we go down to that, if you guys go down to that, a lot of them we're trying to answer. And then we'll try to get to a lot of these also throughout the week and before our next live show as well, and put it out there for the community. So in my opinion, what we're doing here today, apart from giving you guys a product update, introducing this whole foundational reboot with Byron that we're kicking off, as well as the concept of flight, which I hope you guys are really excited about, because I think it's a beautiful way of being able to get you involved into our products before we actually put it in production ready environments, right? There's a couple of key takeaways. One, we have a great team. We truly believe in this mission to deliver Cardano, and you've heard from quite a few of them. And on this show, we'll continue to bring them on from different aspects of IO to showcase what they're working on, what they're doing in support of this. Two, we are starting a quick, agile delivery methodology in how we're going to be releasing these. So yes, formal methodology means we take time, but that doesn't mean we don't release in a way that you can test things that are maybe not as stable as it would if we had to go through the waterfall methodology. That way we invite you in to our product development process as the community, and we're asking for that participation. We're really excited to be doing this. And then three, the communication with our community. We've been doing a pretty good job of that. We're going to take it up a level, and now introducing the faces of Cardano to you with the product teams and with the other teams, supporting teams as well. And doing this regularly will be great. So looking forward to continuing this relationship with you guys there. Thank you so much.
Great. No, well, thank you, Aparna, and thank you to all the team. And I hope everybody has got some value from this and enjoyed it. We've had a few technical snafus along the way, but we're all learning. We wanted to get cracking, and we'll continue to build this out over the months ahead. So yeah, we're all going to go back to our desks now and carry on with the rollout of the Byron reboot. Watch out for Daedalus flight coming very, very soon, and we'll see you all around this time next month with a new cast of Cardano folk. So thank you very much, everybody, and take care. Stay safe.